Hey, thanks for tuning into the Paul Rivera Podcast. I'm super excited about today's guest, Nigel Sylvester. I've known Nigel for going on over a decade, and we get into everything from the beginning, his early days in Queens, to the day he found out he was officially a BMX pro, to his first Nike sneaker, to, of course, discussing his amazing Go series. So I hope you enjoy the show as much as I did. Enjoy and let me know what you think. Peace. Good people, welcome to the Paul Rivera Podcast. I always say this at the beginning of a show. I say I'm really excited to have this guest, but I really mean that for a number of reasons, which we'll get into. Would love to introduce a man that needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. Nigel Sylvester. Nigel, what's up?
I'm doing good. About yourself, bro?
Nigel, you know what's crazy? When I have someone come on the show, I normally do a little bit of research, which my producer Eric would say it's no research, but I do a little bit of research. But the easiest thing is always like title, right? So we had Draymond Green on the show, and it's like, you know, NBA champion, Olympian, blah, 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 blah. We had shoe surgeon on the show. You know, it's very simple. For you, which is what we'll jump right into, is like, you don't just have one title anymore. It's not like pro BMXer. Like, you're doing so much more, right? But before we go into that, I want to start at the beginning. Queens, New York.
Queens, New York, man.
What was Queens, New York like? Young Nigel Sylvester running the streets.
Oh, man, there was more than likely a bike around me at all times. Chasing someone around, like, trying to get them to, like, show me a trick. Or riding around the block, like, trying to find an ice cream man.
And this is at an early age? Like, when did your love for BMX start?
Early, man. Like, I actually seen a photo of myself recently. I was probably, like, 2 years old holding on to a bike.
Oh,
bike's
shit.
bigger than me. I'm holding on to it. Like, my aunt had it from way back. And I was like, wow, like, my love for bicycles started before I even knew.
Wow.
Usually I was like around like 4 or 5 years old. But seeing that photo, I was like, man, this happened before then. I couldn't remember that far back. You know, so started at an early age, bro. I was always about.
And where in Queens did you grow up?
Laurelton, Queens, to be exact.
Okay.
So like, Laurelton's like St. Albans and Cambridge Heights and all that's like over there.
So I don't know Queens super well. I know it well enough to know there's a basketball court damn near on every other block, right? Just like the rest of the city, right? Was there BMX influences around you? Because there's one thing for me to have a bike, right? I had a bike with the bell. My shit was super not cool like your shit.
What kind of bike you had though, bro?
I like the bell. I mean, it's not about me. This shit wasn't about me. But your love for BMX, like where did it come? Like what influences at that age? Like obviously not at 2, but at a young age, what made you pick up the bike and not a basketball or a bat or?
Well, we played ball like in the hood as well. You know what I mean? Because you said there was a basketball court in every park.
Of course.
Cats had like rims above like their garages, so like it was a basketball court everywhere. And we loved playing football on the street, like manhole to manhole. I would love that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all my older cousins and friends and my older brother and stuff, they would get teams together and play, like
You can bring it in.
like our block versus this block. And I was like the little super young dude, but I was fast, so I would always like play. Cheers, my dude. We would always like play like football and whatnot. But it was something about the bike that I just had like this pull on me.
Okay.
You know, it felt very natural, you know. And I always say like around the age of like 4 or 5 when I was in my grandmother's driveway one day and I had like a big wheeler and my older cousins like set up these cones. I was like, yo man, like ride around the cones, and I was just like speed demon at an early age. So I'm pushing that big wheel as fast as I possibly can. I was like doing like little like drifts and slide outs in the driveway at 4 or 5 years old, and they were like super impressed. And I think from seeing how impressed they were with what I was doing and wanting their acceptance, being the youngest kid around, I just like dove into it more and more, man, you know.
And the more you dove into it, the better you got.
Of course,
guessing, right?
yeah,
like,
man. Whether it was then like that big wheeler graduated to like a 16-inch bike, and I was jumping like little curb cuts and like little ramps like with this little ass bike.
And how old are you at this point?
At this point on my 16-inch bike, I probably had to be 8 years old.
Wow.
You know, like young, but I wanted it. Okay. You know, what I mean, like I love the adrenaline that came along with it. You know.
And you mentioned your friends showing love and being impressed, or the neighborhood kids. A black kid BMX riding in Queens, was it an anomaly? Was it like, you know, we're not used to seeing that, or was it appreciated, that early on? Or did you notice there was no difference? It's just you're doing your thing?
At first, it was definitely appreciated and loved because everyone in the hood had bikes. Whether you had like the GT with the mags or the Chrome Mongoose or the Dyno.
You're doing it big with the Mongoose.
Oh man, you had that bread. Like a lot of us didn't have that bread, so we had to get it other ways. But if you had it, it was a vibe. So like it was appreciated like to like that extent, like having a dope bike in the hood. When I started to really take it on serious, where I'm like, okay, cool, now I want to get this Harrow, put 4 pegs on it, take my brakes off, I want to jump down these stairs. That's when it became a thing. Was like, okay, you a little bit of an anomaly, and there was a few of us in the hood like riding BMX on that level, but in the grand scheme of things, people just didn't understand it. They're like, well, why would you want to take this bike and jump down these stairs? You can hurt yourself. That's the first thing people always think is getting hurt.
I read somewhere, I think in an interview you did, that you said at one point early on in your, I guess you could call it your BMX career early on, that at least in the neighborhood it was perceived as like a white thing.
Yeah, dude.
Talk about that a little bit.
Of course, because you got to think about growing up in Jamaica, Queens, and Laurelton, predominantly black neighborhood. The only kind of interaction that we had with BMX on that level, jumping off ramps and grinding handrails, we've seen white boys doing it. So we automatically associated with that. So at that time, being like a young kid, and most of my friends being young kids as well, and people I looked up to in the hood, they were young, like, they didn't think about 3 or 4 steps beyond. They just automatically associated with, oh, you're doing a white boy sport. Like, that's just what it was. It was a bit of ignorance, but that's who we seen doing it at that time, at that point in time. Like, we didn't see many like black kids or Spanish kids like riding BMX bikes and jumping down handrails and shit. It just wasn't common at all,
So I guess 2-part question. One is, when do you realize, A, that you can be a pro, not you, but that there's such a thing as being a professional BMXer, right? And then 2, when does it click for you, like, I might have a shot at this?
Okay. When I was like around like 11, 12 years old, when I started to see BMX on TV, like professionally, which was around the same time where like people started to be like, okay, like that's a white boy thing. Kind of same exact time. I was like, okay, cool, these dudes are doing this professionally. Like, they're traveling the world, they're at contests, you see them winning a contest, they have their prize money up, they're holding their check up, hell yeah, 100 bands. I'm like, oh, this looks great. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to be a professional bike rider. And then at the point where I was like, okay, cool, maybe I have a shot, probably a couple years later, I had to probably be around like 14 years old. I was like, okay, cool. Wow. Like, I understood at that point that I was getting really good on my bike fast. Where like there were dudes in my neighborhood was like, man, like, you're getting good. And I'm talking about like other bike riders who were like into BMX. They were like, okay, you're getting good. I'm starting to do tricks that the older kids are doing. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, if I keep going, I may have a shot with this.
And at this point, you're taking it serious. Like, oh, I got a real shot. Like,
I'm taking it serious. I'm taking it extremely serious, bro. Like, every day. Like, summertime, morning to night on my bicycle. Get home after school. I may do some homework, may not, but I'm jumping on my bike. Wintertime, like, I remember my mom had bought me a video camera for Christmas one year. And I was like, bet, I need to start filming myself so I can see what I'm doing. At this point, I'm riding, doing tricks, but cell phones don't have cameras on them yet. And like, none of my friends really have cameras, so I'm riding, but I can't see what I'm doing. I could just feel it. So I begged my mom, please give me a video camera. She got me a whole little setup, a whole little kit, a little small like mini DV video camera with a tripod, and I set the thing up in the driveway. And I remember at one point in particular, it was like wintertime, because after Christmas, and I have the camera set up in the driveway, and I'm using it at nighttime, and I'm using the Christmas lights to light up the driveway so I can get light on the camera. And I'm in the driveway riding, just trying tricks so I could film and see what I'm doing so I know what to work on, work on my technique, man. And I mean, I've always been super dedicated. Like, whatever I put my mind to, like, I would not be stopped. Like, I have to accomplish that. And
parents supportive all along? At what point did they realize it's a silly, were they like, it's a silly thing, you like to ride your bike? I think a lot of times, like our generation, I'm a little older than you, our generation, our parents were like, didn't necessarily understand that we could turn a lot of our passions into actual careers.
Definitely. Man.
Did your parents see that early? Did your mom?
They accepted the fact that I was riding my bike and it seemed to keep me out of trouble for the most part. But you also got to realize that I'm a first generation, so like my parents are immigrants. So like
That's a whole separate
That's
thing.
a whole
Yes.
other thing.
Yes.
Like my
You're gonna be
family.
a doctor, fam.
Oh, that's it. Like Dr. Lloyd, that's it. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
like my parents left Grenada in their early 20s to come to America, left their families, left their home, left everything they knew to come to America, this new place.
To give you that
To
opportunity,
give me
right?
opportunity.
Of course.
So when I'm riding, like, okay, cool. As long as you're in school and getting good grades, you can go and ride after and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like that part was cool. It wasn't until I had to make a choice between embracing being a professional bike rider seriously and staying in school when it got crazy.
Got it. And then, so we go from 14-year-old, 15-year-old Nigel getting really good on his bike. How do you become a pro?
Man, so around I think it was 10th grade, I met this kid named Therese, and I always tell this story because like it was seriously like the moment in time when my life changed completely. Met him in a hallway in high school. Went to Benjamin Cardozo High School. She had a good basketball program.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the coach's name?
Claria.
Claria.
Ronnie went
yes,
there too.
The Claria. Yes, yes, yes.
I met him in the hallway during passing. He told me about Union Square. He was like, "Yo, Union Square, bro, is a spot that all the bike riders go to meet up. All the dope cats in the city." So I was like, "Okay, cool. That's where I need to go. I'm going there." So I remember like taking my bike and stashing it at his house. And I left school early one day, grabbed my bike, and went to Union Square. I couldn't go back to my crib.
And up to this point, Nigel, so I didn't interrupt you, you don't know that these places exist where it's like
exist.
really good, real riders doing their
Exist. shit. The only spots I know exist is a skate park, 2 skate parks. One in the Bronx near Yankee Stadium called Mullally's, and then one in on 108th and Riverside.
Okay.
All the way uptown.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So coming from Queens to go there,
Gotcha.
that's a troop and a
Yeah,
half.
hell yeah. And you
what I
know
mean?
you're good, but you haven't necessarily rode
Yeah, I haven't really rode
right
with
with
the
like
cats who
yes
are
to
doing
really
it.
judge yourself and see where I really am.
At
Okay.
this point, it's still like neighborhood shit.
Got
I'm
you.
like, at this point, I'm better than all the cats in my neighborhood.
Got
I'm
you.
like, this is cool, but I need to be challenged.
Got you. Yep.
You know, so I remember that I couldn't go back to my house, so I had to leave my bike at his house because my mom worked nights, so she was home during the day. So I was like, okay, cool. If I go home and I grab my bike and I'm coming home super early from school, she'll know something's up. And I'm gonna get ass whooping.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, let me stash my bike at Teresa's crib because his mom works during the day. I could grab my bike and go to Union. So I did that. Went to Union for the first time, and as soon as I got out of the subway, man, like right to Union Square, all I see is a bunch of cats riding bikes and then nasty, like dope. Black kids, Spanish kids, white kids, all walks of life, doing that riding nasty, bro. And there was a few pros at the time who grew up in New York City, like from New York, and they was out there too. Okay. So like it's pretty much like you pulling up to West Fourth or the Rucker and like brawling them out there. Like it's that
like,
level.
So you're like, oh shit, this is it. Okay.
I'm like, oh,
I see what
shit,
it is.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it's like the top of the top riders in the game are at Union Square chilling because it was just a spot to be at. And I remember like just befriending them, and that first night I was super quiet. I was like just observing, like, okay, cool, I'm here. I need to like play it cool. Don't want to do too much. I don't think I even rode that night. I was so nervous. I was just like, I don't even want to like do too much. But they were hella cool, and like they embraced me, and we like befriended one another. And I started hanging out with them. And from like the age of like 15 to when I turned pro, like it was every day on it, like learning the game from them. Like whether it was riding stuff or like the business side of it or just how to conduct myself as a young man within the BMX industry.
Got it.
All of it was super important. I was just soaking everything up, you know?
Got it. So what's that moment like? Because we're very familiar with, you know, I'm using air quotes, like traditional sports, like you go to college for a year and you go to the NBA draft and a team calls your name and you sign a contract and you're a pro, right? Football. What's it like to become a pro? What's that process like for a BMX kid?
Well, there's the different ways you can go about it. Like, a lot of times you come up in like the contest circuit and you ride a bunch of contests and you finally get a chance to ride a professional contest, and you may place really well, and a company's like, listen, we want to turn you pro. In the sense of how I came up, and a lot of dudes in New York come up, it's kind of like you have to get that cosign. You know, so I feel it's even harder in a sense because you have to impress certain people, and not just with your bike riding skills, like who you are as a person. Yep. You know, so for me in particular, there were a few pros, a dude named Edwin De La Rosa, a dude named Tyrone Williams, Finney Salmon, Bob Sherbo. Like these dudes were like the pros at the time, and they rode for a company called Animal Bikes. And those dudes, after hanging out with me for a few years, I'm like, cool, like you can hang. they co-signed me, and I got signed to Animal Bikes as a professional bike rider.
Oh, well, what was that moment like when you tell your moms, like?
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy. Because so much happened at one time, P. So, like, there's also a dude named Glenn Milligan who was this amazing videographer, and he grew up in Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay, and he moved out to LA because that's where the BMX industry is the most popular. Right? You can ride your bike all year round in LA, so a lot of companies are out there. It's more space for warehousing and stuff like that. He moved out to LA. He was working for a media company called Ride BMX, and they would do videos like twice a year. And he came back to New York to do a video, and that was the first time I got put in like a legit video. And working with him and working with other pros, like, it became a thing. Was like cool. It was understood that I was the next one up. If I kept doing my thing, I'll be the next one up. And we had did a video called Flipside, and at the time, the concept was to take 4 up and coming BMX street riders and take 4 like big time pros and kind of like swap worlds for a second. Like they come and ride in our world, we go ride in their world. Dope. And on that trip, I met Dave Mirra, R.I.P. And for those of you who don't know who Dave Mirra is like the greatest of all time BMX rider. Yeah, like he's
MJ.
Level.
Like
he's like the MJ of BMX, you know. And I met him, and he already kind of like knew about me from like word of mouth. And we met on that trip, and he was like, "Cool, I'm starting this program, and I'm thinking about signing you to a professional deal." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Like again, like not getting too excited.
Like what you want me to say? Yeah. Cool. But inside,
yeah, I did. I'm like, all right, dude, okay. But then I got back home after that trip, and later that summer, I think I had just turned like 18. I got a phone call one day from him, and he's like, "Yo, listen, we had a conversation. I've been seeing what you've been doing, and I want to sign you to a deal." And I was like, "Okay, bet." Wow. And that was actually the moment when I turned pro. And then Animal Bikes co-signed me after that. Wow. I got signed to Nike.
All at once. Wow.
All at one time.
Oh, and Nike.
All at one time, dude.
Wow.
So like that summer changed my life completely.
Wow.
Like that was the moment where it really changed me.
I always tell the story, like when I got my first like real job was at Nike, which at this point was like over a decade ago. And I remember them offered me the job, and it was like $70,000 a year. I called my mom, like, "Mom, we did it, baby.
Made it.
You could retire." Well, I thought $70,000 was going to have us riding into the sunset, but you're so happy about the opportunity, right? And it's and you're absolutely right. It is life changing. It may not be in a monetary sense at that very moment, but you know, if you handle your business correctly, it could be the launching pad for. So it's funny. So that's where our paths cross, right? Yeah. It's like Nike. I remember. They used to have like these I don't know if they still have them, they used to have these end of year sales meetings in Portland, and each category would come out and like, you know, kind of show off their like their shiny new toy of what the next year is going to be about, whatever, and there was this new category called 6.0. Yeah. All right? Which was like the coolest, not to say Nike's not cool, but the coolest non-corporate looking kind of thing. Like the people that worked for the brand looked like they rode and looked like they were skateboarders, whatnot. And they introduced, I want to say a skater, and may have been P-Rod, you may know better than I would, a young lady that was a skier. A young lady, and she was young, she might have been like 16 at the time or something like that, right? You guys were babies, and they were like from Queens, New York, and I was like, at this point, I'm like a little checked out. I'm like, what time's dinner, man? I'm hungry. And they're like, Queens, New York, and I was like, That's like, Queens? Crazy. You come out to the interview, and I was like, oh, like, he's from like my city, whatnot. Looked into it a little more. At that time, it's when they had done the 6.0 campaign, right? So you were like retail campaign. All over the place, whatnot. And I remember, I never told you this, I remember telling someone, I'm like, that kid looks like a model. Like half the people probably don't even know he really rides. You know what I'm saying? He just has the look of like the culture of like how he dresses, the whole thing. So to see how that's evolved, talk a little bit about like Nike and like what that was like. Because I remember having conversations with you about, and you've never said this, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I almost feel like you were too early for that. I almost feel like you and like BMX was like a little earlier than they were ready for. So it was like they knew you were dope and hot out in the streets. I don't know if they necessarily, and I say I was there for this. I don't know if they necessarily knew how to like get it popping and put their muscle behind you.
No, of course. And it was definitely early. I mean, it was definitely early in the game. I remember that day like you're talking about. I actually seen the photo recently. It was Mark Losey and myself on stage, and Mark Losey was the dude responsible for signing me to Nike. I think I had like a gray sweatshirt on, like a blue Yankee hat, because at that point I refused to leave New York without having a Yankee hat. Baby. Yeah, always, bro. Like it was the thing was like this rite of passage. Like I had to have it with me all the time. I was like, wherever I'm at, I'm rocking my hat. You know, I remember that. I had seen the photo of me on stage and everything, but it was cool, man. Like 6.0 embraced those action sports at the time where a lot of big companies weren't embracing those action sports. So it was a great opportunity. That program kind of came to an end because I think it was a little too early, and they were trying to figure it out. But fortunately enough, they seen the value in the BMX program, and they re-signed us like a different type of, I guess, program structure. We became like Nike Flag, I think it was, man. But Nike's always been a great supporter of mine, man. Thinking about it now, I've been signed to Nike for 13 years, bro.
That's nuts.
Like that's crazy.
That's
you know what
nuts.
I mean? Like, and they've always been, they've been very supportive. You know, I think it definitely took time for them to figure out how to actually like activate me in certain ways. But they definitely took like chances on me. I can remember for the 08, I think 08 Olympics, they did Beijing. And that was my first time where I was featured in like a global campaign. It was wild, man, where it's like, I remember, like, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I remember I had like bought some brand new like APC denim because I went through a photo shoot. I got some new denim. I bought some denim, and we shot in Queens at the Globe. And I was like, this is dope. But at that point, I didn't know what it would turn into.
They're like, hey, we have your wardrobe here. You're like, no like, wardrobe, I'm wearing.
Yeah, like, I came ready. Like, it was like, hold on, there's three of the same jackets. Why? Like, I didn't get it at that point. But shortly after, we flew to Beijing for the opening of the Olympics, whatever that was. We did like a little like demo in this big like empty like warehouse with a bunch of media and stuff. And we came back from that trip, and that was the first time I got a billboard in New York City. You know, like Nike like went out of their way and got me a billboard on Houston and West Broadway, and like that was such a moment for me, bro, because I didn't know they were putting a billboard up. But one of my friends, he lived on West Broadway in Houston, and he opened his window one day into his blinds. He woke up one morning, opened his blinds, and he seen that there.
That's crazy.
He hit me right away, and I like bounced out from Brooklyn and came to New York, came to the city and seen it. I was like, this is crazy. And I remember like bringing my mom there one day. And like that was the moment where it clicked for her. It was like, okay, you're doing something now. You know, so it's been a hell of a journey with Nike, bro.
And you've always been, at least in my mind, a little bit of an anomaly, right? Like just given the sport, given some of the things you've mentioned, like the East Coast, you know, not being white, like, you know, I think for me, one that honestly I think didn't click till it was a conversation you and I had. You don't compete, right? So even that's so non-traditional. Like, talk to us a little bit about like that, right? There's traditional competitions that you see on ESPN, the Ocho or whatever it is these days. You know, like, and then there's you. Like, I think like you've created your own lane of like a lifestyle. But I mean, you could speak to it way better than I can.
No, of course. I mean, like you think about it, like looking at BMX being a non-traditional sport, and then me not competing within that industry, but doing my thing with content and like the lifestyle. I'm unconventional within this non-traditional sport. It's like a double, like kind of anomaly, like in a sense, you know, because at that point, like most of the top BMX riders, they were like competing in contests. There were a few who weren't. Some of the names I mentioned earlier, like some of those dudes were top of the game and weren't competing. But I think the difference for me came was with the type of brand partnerships that I had at that time. You know, like being signed to someone like Dave Merrill, like riding for Nike, being signed to someone like Beast by Dre in the early stages of that. You know, I was signed to LRG for a minute. Shout out to Woody, who rolled the dice on me. He was like, cool, we're gonna try to see what happens. You know, like there was so many like big brands who were like in partnerships with me, and people didn't understand. It was like, well, how do you not compete? You're a BMX rider, which we don't really understand. We know we ride bikes, but we don't really understand all the intricacies of it. And then you have all these amazing brand partners. Like, what's going on here? So I think like it had some. It definitely at the early stages it had this allure to it, but people were still so confused. You know, luckily for like social media, YouTube, and like at that point, Facebook and MySpace was going down at that point. I was able to control the story. I was able to put out the content that I wanted to put out.
Very important.
Very important. And even at that stage, like I don't even think we even called it content at that point.
Right.
That word wasn't even used to refer to videos and like photos at that point.
Yep.
It was just videos and photos.
Just videos.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that's just what 100%. It was.
Because up to that point, there was videos people put out from like a tour or whatever it was.
Exactly.
Your content was way different. There was
Way
nothing
different.
like what you were putting out.
No, it was way different, and like people didn't care enough. I don't even think at that point brands understood what digital marketing was at that point.
So I'm gonna tell you a story, which you know, probably 70% of it, because you and I were involved in it. So for you listeners, viewers, at the time I had left Nike and went to Beats. I mean, you had a conversation, and I was managing all sports marketing globally, and you were like, "Hey, I'm trying to get on with Beats. I just want to have a conversation. I have my thing cooking. You already had your Nike deal. You were already smoking." And I was like, yeah, I already, coming from New York, having built up a friendship with you, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Beats being anti-establishment and all these things. So at the time, I'm literally working on my Beats global sports marketing strategy, and like I have like a LeBron James plan. I have like, was it Nigel Houston plan, right? Competing and winning everything and whatever. We have Serena, I have, I believe, Neymar, and then I have like Nigel Sylvester. So my boss at the time was looking through it. He's like, yeah, cool, listen, I brought you here to do whatever you want to do. Who's Nigel Sylvester? And I'm like, man, he's this dope kid, BMX kid. He goes, BMX? Like he couldn't even wrap his brain around. He was like, you know what, do whatever you want. Like, cool. And then that leads to, I leave soon after, but you're in commercials, you're doing your thing. Like they got it, you know, kudos to Beats, like they got it. And I think, you know, you mentioned your brand partners or sponsors. I think real kudos to them that the ones that have worked at a really, really high level have been the ones that have bought into you and trusted in you and your vision and have been like, all right, you know what? We don't have this master plan, necessarily campaign that we want to fit you into. How can we support you? And then you got hot and popped and it's like, oh, we have this master campaign that we can kind of also do this. So it's kind of been like you've literally crafted, you know, created your own lane, you know, in a very unorthodox way, which leads me, you know, to Go, right? Tell people what Go is if they've been under a rock and don't have internet or anything.
Thank you for the Beats by Dre alley-oop. I remember like Kawhi Mike and I were like in front of, you were there, we ran into you in front of the Acne store and brought on
Yes,
Soho.
you were just chilling.
We were trying to like figure that out, bro. Like,
God
it's
works
so
in
crazy.
mysterious ways.
Yeah,
man.
like
Yes.
it's so crazy,
Random.
man. I believe like things happen for a reason, man. Definitely. But it's been one hell of a ride, and I'm definitely appreciative of the brands who've believed in me for so long. You know what I mean? But as far as like what Go is, it started off as just a small idea that Harrison Boyce and I wanted to create a video that we controlled. At that point, I was doing a lot of branded content, and I wanted to create a piece of content that I controlled everything. We wanted to have full control and not have to like fit into any boxes or check off any checklist. So we did this first episode in New York and was like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna just bring people into a day in the life. But how do we like do that on steroids? So it was like, let's shoot the whole thing from the POV perspective. So we put a camera on me and was like, cool, we're gonna give people the true perspective of what it's like when I'm riding my bike through traffic and whatever it is may be. Then I was like, well, how do we cram in everything I do in one day into like a 5-minute video? I was like, cool, let's use these seamless transitions to get from Midtown to Harlem, so we don't have to show the complete journey. We can just kind of jump forward, but keep it exciting and make it creative. So we said, okay, cool. We put this video together. It took us all of summer 2015. I think we began in like end of May, and we didn't finish till I think it was like right before my birthday, like middle of August. And at the end of that like time period, we had this video that we felt very, very good about. We didn't really show anyone because we didn't really want any opinions. Like, no, we believe in this thing. We're gonna do it. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna put it out on YouTube. And we put it out on YouTube, and the thing like took off and went viral. Like people loved it. I felt like at that point in time, there wasn't anything online that looked like that. And it raised the bar for me from an artistic and a creative standpoint, because I was thinking way outside the box that I normally think. It became way more than just a bike trick or like telling how I did a trick. It became like, this is the story of my life, you know. And that video turned into a full series, which is the Go series now, which we've been like more than halfway around the world. And the idea behind taking it beyond just New York, we wanted to tell the story of me being a kid from Queens riding my bicycle around the world.
simple as that. But how can we position it in a way that would make it entertaining and like really tell the story of everything I've done in my career up until this point, the people who I communicate with, who I interact with, the places I see and how I see those places.
Love it. Love it. I have maybe a fun fact, maybe a question. I'm not sure which one it is. I think I'm in the first Go.
Really? Where?
I'm not sure if it's like a different content piece. Mercer Street. You go into the Mercer store. I dap you. Is that a different content piece?
No, that is the Gatorade Go All Day video.
See?
That was like pre-Go.
Good, because if it was Go, my lawyers were online too. 'Cause I know I didn't sign any releases, so we were gonna figure it out offline. I wasn't really stressing it, but I know we did something, and it was just kind of my way of trying to get in like one of the next Goes. But we'll talk about that again later. So even you, I mean, first of all, congrats on all the success of Go. Honestly, like it looks. You just touched on it. It looks like nothing else out there, right? You've done an incredible job, and me doing what I do in my day-to-day life of working with brands. Every single brand out there is trying to do what you've accomplished with Go in the sense of like connecting sport to culture, right, in an authentic way. And I think the way you've done that is seamless. And like I said, I think the fact of hearing where it started to where it's gone and who knows where it'll go. But I mean, it has you icy, clearly. I don't know if you can zoom in on the ice. It's just,
a couple of things on
you know, has my man Icy over here. So what is your, what can you tell us about the next Go, or at least what can you tell us about what your hopes are for Go as just a series?
No, definitely. So like Go is turning into like a full out like lifestyle travel brand at this point. Like beyond, like we're gonna continue to do the content, but beyond that, like we have like merch coming out. We have
love it. We
have certain events that we're gonna do like during the summertime, and like the brand is just really embracing like young, old, whatever, you know what I mean, people who are just ambitious, people who have dreams, people that love what they do, whether it's a conventional idea or a non-conventional idea. Like we want to embrace those people, whether you're traveling from New York to Tokyo or you're traveling from Queens to Manhattan for like your 9 to 5, like this is it's a journey in between those 2 points, and it's a story to be told, and I guess and there's attitude that goes along with whatever you're trying to accomplish. So really we want to like create this brand for those people. So that's like the future of Go. We have some more content coming out this year. We're gonna do the 7th installment of Go.
Wow, 7 already?
7, bro. It's crazy to think about it, man. We've been New York, LA, Tokyo, Miami, Dubai, London, Paris. We've been doing this thing all over the world, man. And like people love it, man. And just seeing how people react to it, and just reading some of the comments on the YouTube, like man, like every time it gets better and better. The fact that people are like noticing that, man, and it's very fulfilling, you know. And as the team grows as well, we just want to take Go to like the next level.
Now, what's that team look like? I mean, you're always, you know, you're one of the humblest guys I know. What type of support do you have behind you, and whether it's, you know, you personally as a Nigel Sylvester brand or the Go brand, like how big's your team? Big, small? Am I looking at it like in the room? Like
pretty nimble team, you know what I mean? We have Danielle who's like with me like every single day, and I'll call her at any time of day, like I have this idea, let's try to make it happen, and she's like down for the cause, which I love. We have Harrison Boyce, who's like director and one of my best friends of the Go series, and other than that, just friends who really support me, you know, and family who like support me, you know, and you know, it's sometimes people come in and out of the fold depending on the project, but that's like the core of it, you know.
I feel like you've had like numerous lives where I feel like hearing you talk about like pre-Nike, right? And then like the Nike look was a big look, right? And all that came with it. And then I feel like, you know, I ran into you at one point where you were like, I think it clicked for you where it was like, I have support, but I gotta do this shit on my own. Right, I gotta really make this bubble on my own.
I think we sat over here, right?
Yes, had the conversation. Yes, had the conversation, right? About like, hey, I need to take this to the next level. And I think that's one of the things I've always admired about you, that you've never rested on like your success. So it's been like most kids would be like, I gotta deal with Nike, like free kicks, whatever, you know. So I feel you were like pre-Nike, Nike. Then I won't call it a lull, but like you put the brand on your back, right? Definitely. And then Go popped, and I feel like that took you off again to another life. But then something happened where it was like lightning in a bottle, and like this footwear shit started happening where it was like, you know, the Jordan pop. Talk to me about like how the Jordan like, that doesn't happen, like.
Crazy, man. Like it kind of touched back on that logo. I think those moments are important to talk about. It's not just, everything isn't just shiny and glossy. There were times where like I was bummed in my career. I was like, man, like things aren't going the way I wanted to go, like how do I kind of take a step back and reset? And I'm very thankful to have like mentors and people like you in my life that I can like, yo, Piet's going to come and talk to you. And just even that one talk and that advice you gave me, like probably did so much for me, you know, because I was definitely at a spot where things were rough, man. You know, like,
Yeah, no.
it was just,
And we all
great,
been there.
like,
No one ever sees those times, right?
Exactly.
Because on the gram, you don't see those. It's like you just see like the bottles popping, right?
Everything
Like,
shiny on the
but
ground.
to your point, you need those lulls to set
of
you
course,
up. You know,
man.
like
at the time, from the outside looking in, it's like, yeah, I'm signing Miracle, I'm signing Nike, I'm in a Gatorade deal.
pulling up to the MTV Awards with Pharrell.
Yeah, with Pharrell.
Like,
We
yeah,
on the
like,
red carpet,
you couldn't have
like,
bigger looks.
Shit
like,
was crazy,
yes,
you know what I mean?
yes.
Like,
We signed to G-Shock and all the brands that were supporting me at that time. You know, it was amazing, but it still wasn't right. I didn't feel fulfilled. Like, the things I was putting out creatively I didn't feel it, you know? And it took those moments, I feel, to get me to where I'm at now, to jumping ahead to, like, the footwear conversation. And we put out 2 shoes last year that both sold out like that. Insane, you know, like.
How's that happen? It's like you're not new to Nike. You're not new to what you do, right? Like, how's that conversation even like? How's that conversation take place where it's like we want you to design a Jordan 1?
Crazy, man. Like, shout out to Frank Cook, man. He was a real advocate to have me come in and like design this shoe, and him and I like sat in the lab and we cooked up like the shoe. The idea was like cool, like I'm riding Jordan 1s all day, every day. There's tons of images and videos and photos of me out there riding this Jordan 1, and I always beat them up. They get distressed, so like, let's tell that story. And I think that's one of the most important things I've learned throughout my career is like, how do you tell the proper story? How is it going to relate? How's it going to resonate? And like when Frank and I decided that was the right story, I was like, cool, like this feels good. Let's go and like put this together. And we sat down and had a few creative sessions. And I was sitting in Harrison's lab. We were editing Go London to Paris, and Frank video called me and was like, yo, bro, we got this shoe. And he showed me the shoe in the video call, and I'm like, oh, I'm tripping, bro. Like, all the conversations we had for like the year and a half leading up to that point to see the shoe finally come to life, man. I was like, yo, send it ASAP, bro. Like, overnight it. You know, like, overnight that now.
Sure.
You know?
Talk about your rollout a little bit for that, because I thought it was, as everything else you do, super thought out, super premium, and just, you know, really out of the box. I don't know if you want to shout out like any of your partners that helped you with that. I know it's like City to City and all these things, but talk about that a little bit.
No, of course. Like, well, as I embrace more and more like this global, this travel lifestyle of mine, and that's super important. Like, traveling is one thing that BMX has afforded me, and I will forever be grateful for. I was like, if I'm gonna put a shoe out, I want to go to 2 of my strongest markets. Like, of course, starting home in New York, but in LA, like I have so many moments that LA is responsible for. I remember my first time going to LA, I think I was like 17 years old, I wasn't even a pro yet, and I feel that's a second home for me. I was like, you know what, I wanted to do a shoe release, but I want to release this in multiple markets at the same time, on the same day. So I was like, yeah, let's do a drop in New York in the morning time and a drop in LA at the nighttime, same day. And we were able to work with Nike, of course, Samsung, Mercedes-Benz helped out. We was able to put the whole thing together. Shout out to Jordan Brand over there for believing in the idea, believing in the product. You know, we did like the New York drop at KIF.
Shout out to Ronnie.
So shout out to Ronnie for holding it down, and then we did the LA release at RSVP in downtown LA. Shout out to Don C and Easy for making that happen. So pretty much we started it in the morning. We started off at KIF, did the drop, and we sold a few hundred pairs, and then we jumped on a jet, flew to LA, sold another few hundred pairs at RSVP.
You put the bike on the jet?
We did a Jordan Bike and Co bike, and put the bike on the jet, which is crazy. Like, I'm tripping. I got like my brother with me, my 2 best friends. Like, it was amazing, man. But I think the community and the people seeing that moment was important, because it's more than just like me selling shoes. Like, I was there from when the first shoe got sold to the last shoe.
Yeah.
You know, like, I really wanted to touch the people in such an important moment for me. I wanted to be there to connect with people. I think people really seen that, took every photo, signed every autograph, you know what I mean? Like, spoke to the people. Like, there was this one dude that impressed me so much at the LA stop. This dude was in a wheelchair. He was like, man, yo, I'm so inspired by your shoe, by your story, by this moment. I want to stand up for you.
Oh shit,
dude, and like this dude's messed up, you know what I mean? And he stood up out of his wheelchair, he's shaking, and he's holding on to me, but he was so moved to to stand up and show me that, and I was like, man, like, we have it all on camera. It was such an amazing moment.
Well, that's when I let you know it's bigger than you, right?
So much bigger than me.
It's easy to get caught up in like the day-to-day and things you got to do, and a lot of times we don't really have visibility or awareness of like the people we impact, right? So, and I say we, I really mean you. Not me.
We all love,
but
bro.
you know, like, so I think that had to be a crazy special moment
like,
for you.
I think that was probably more special than anything else that day, man. Like seeing that the things that I've been doing, how hard that I'm working, how hard my team is working, for like this kid to be that inspired to want to stand up out of his wheelchair and like, you know, like fight against whatever's holding him back. You know, that was definitely touching, bro.
I have, you know, I take zero credit for any of this. It's more so like big brother proud of like that next generation. There's like a bunch of years, like I'm always super proud of anything I see you doing on the gram. I'm proud of like Cam and everything they do over there. Do some and
crazy.
I'm proud of Raven and you know, her being on tour and all that stuff. And even Ronnie, I'm older than. I'm proud. Like I just love the movement of all of it. I had another one of those moments with you, which you have no idea where I'm going with it. But on the gram the other day, I'm just scrolling on my business and I see you at the Fendi show. And I'm like, my guy's out of here. I'm like, them checks is different now. My man's at how'd that go about? Talk to me about you being out there. And
dude, it was crazy, man. Fendi recently started a platform called Ephesus Fendi, and it's that platform where like they embrace young creatives and artists and athletes who are doing their thing, who of course are doing their thing in like their field, but also like respect and are into like the fashion as well. And we reached out to them and said, listen, we want to do a collaboration. We want to come out. We want to shoot a piece of content. And they was like, cool. They were into it. So we shot a piece of content that comes out soon. And as we build more and more, they're like, we're having this show out in Milan. You want to come and hang out? I was like, oh, how do we come out? So I was actually in LA at the time doing like a bunch of shit. And I was like, no, I'm going to leave LA early, come back to New York. And then we jumped on a plane to Milan for 2 days to go to the show. We sat front row, and they showed nothing but love and flicked it up everywhere and whatnot. And it was a vibe, bro. It was definitely a vibe. And I think I was telling my mom, I was like, yeah, I need to leave LA, and I'm like tripping. I need to go to Milan for 2 days to a fashion show. And it's like, what did I just say?
So like, who are you?
Like, what?
How's this normal?
She
How's
was like laughing
normal?
at me and joking with me and stuff. But it's great that I'm able to share those moments with her, and that keeps me grounded, you know. But it's definitely wild. I'm definitely thankful, man, to think of like where I came from, like being like this BMX driver in Queens, New York, to now like I'm shooting to Milan for Fashion Week for a couple of days and then back home. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy.
I thought through when I saw the billboard, and you've had numerous ones at this point, but I saw a billboard. It's the one like you have the bike rider and you're kind of looking back. It's a great shot. I want to say it was over like Canal maybe. I mean, you have multiple ones,
yeah,
so
it was crazy.
I apologize.
That was the most recent one. It was on 34th Street, you know, and like that was probably the most like emotional one for me when I say like it really hit something inside, because that was for the Just Do It campaign. And I'm sure you know, like growing up, like watching all the Just Do It stuff, like that's the pinnacle. Like that's it. Yeah. You know, and so like when they hit me up about that, I was like, of course, like Just Do It, like that's it. Like that's the mentality that I've put into my career my entire life. Like not waiting for someone to tell me yes or no, and not really following the rules, like making my own rules, you know. And again, like what the statement is, just do it. So like that campaign came out recently when they launched the 650 Nike store, and I'm up there like looking at it like, wow, like you got Braun and Odell and Serena and Saquon Barkley, and it's like, and me, I'm just like, what? Like it's crazy.
I remember seeing it. I don't know if you remember. I saw it, and it was such a proud moment for me, just being your friend, and saw it, and I took a picture of it and posted on the ground. I'm like, my little brother rode his bike out the hood. It hasn't looked back yet. It hasn't looked back yet, and that's how I feel about you. It's like you haven't looked back yet, man. Like before I get you out of here, what can you tell us about what you have coming up? Whatever you can share, what you're excited about, or what you're trying to accomplish, whether in the short or the long term.
No, of course, man. Like you can always expect I'm cooking something up. I still love the element of surprise in this digital age where everything kind of gets leaked. I like to keep certain things, but you could definitely look forward to the 7th installment of Go. We're gonna do Go Africa next, which is gonna be a while. And go to the motherland.
I carry bags. I get in where I fit in, man. Listen, I get in where I fit in. I'm very cheap labor. Very cheap labor. I'm a couch and some food, man. That's all it is. So you got Go Africa.
Go Africa.
Wow.
We're gonna continue to build out the Go brands. You're gonna see like way more coming from that on the apparel side and on like the event side. We have some stuff with Fendi coming out. Of course, it's gonna be dope. Got some more stuff with Nike coming out, and I'm making the pledge this year for National Bike Month.
Oh, dope.
We're gonna make a big pledge to put more bikes in kids' hands who don't have the opportunity to have
Dope.
bicycles. That's
Very
very
dope.
important to me. I'm working with Cycle Kids, which is a nonprofit organization here in New York.
Okay.
And they're dedicated to putting bicycles in underprivileged kids' hands and also teaching like bicycle education and like health and fitness and stuff like that. So that's something I'm very excited about for the month of May because I understand and I realize how much the bicycle changed my life. The confidence it gave me, the freedom that it provided me in a sense where I'm able to get on a bicycle and ride anywhere in this world and using that tool to make my dreams come true. It's important that I pay that forward and try at least to put that in other kids' hands, other people's hands. You know, like bicycle is one of the most accessible like modes of transportation in the world. You know, like so much can happen just from that. So that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Dope. I love it. Where can people go, whether it's social handles or site, to learn more about what you have coming up or just to keep kind of?
No, for sure. Just like at Nigel Sylvester on any like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. And then the website is onlygo.co.
Onlygo.co.
You can watch all the Go videos
Okay.
and behind the scenes photos and all that stuff. A lot of great imagery up there.
Love it. Hov has one of the best lines to me, and I'll paraphrase. He says, I'm not a rapper, I'm a hustler. It's just what happens, rap's my hustle. You're not a BMX guy, man. You're a hustler, and I mean that in the ultimate compliment I can.
Facts.
Keep hustling, keep making us proud, man. Thanks for coming by. You got to come back after Go Africa.
Oh, no.
Well, we're going on Go Africa,
we're
so
going.
we'll be back.
As a team.
We'll be back. My brother, thanks for coming back. Very proud of you, man. Peace.